Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet Talking Tactics with my good friend Dharnish once again. It's been a few weeks. We want to do this pretty regularly through the season and moving forward this year, and really weekly. We want to do it when we can sort it out around when there's not when the games sort of make a little more sense timing wise. We'll also want to be trying to do this moving forward, ideally on the platform I'm doing watch alongs on, because they'll actually have this really cool tactics board that we can play with to help add some visuals to our discussion. So I think next week we will be doing that moving forward. But either way, welcome back, Dharnish. It's been a few weeks, and it's been an odd few weeks as ever with United in terms of figuring out who we are, what we are, where we're going, where we're not, and
Yeah,
hopefully we can help try to find some answers in this conversation.
I can't remember who it was that said it, but they said it's been an awkward start to the season, and
Mm-hmm.
you were right. It's not. There's good things. There is a lot of good things that I really like that I'm seeing from this team, but there's also bad things, and it doesn't feel like a team that's in year three. It feels like a team that's in, I don't know, year one, year two. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and frankly, and it's gonna sound harsh, but we have to say it. Everything that we say is gonna have to be caveated by the manager doesn't have a lot of time. He just doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
He's on thin ice. I personally think he's on thin ice just because of what we've seen for the last three seasons. Even if the football is improving, he's been at the helm for a long time now, and we've seen a lot of games where it's been pretty embarrassing for Man United in the past. So
Yeah.
the fans are, I think fans are getting fed up of what we're seeing. Fans are not fed up of what we're seeing. They're getting to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Irrespective of the fact that there are good things that I'm seeing. There's periods definitely that I really like where we're going towards it. It's just it's not the finished product right now. And the overriding theme that I'm seeing is um, they can't do what they're trying to do for 90 minutes. I
Mm-hmm.
think I think he's still he's I think finally he's learning from his mistakes in the fact that this season he seems to be rotating a lot more. He definitely doesn't want the injuries. Steve McLaren had an interview, I think, yesterday where he kept saying, year two, everything was the injuries, the injuries. Look, fine. It was a amount of injuries. I think he's learned from that. He's rotating. Rashford didn't start against Palace, for instance, and everyone thought, oh, what happened? But I think that it was a fitness thing, and it's fine.
Agreed on that for what it's
There's a,
worth.
there's a
Yes.
big
Yeah.
squad. There's plenty of attackers now that you can use. I'm glad that he's learning from that. I think he's finally grabbed the gist of whether this is. I think you confirmed it in a report yourself. Whether it was Wilcox saying to Ten Hag, "No, look, we are in here and we want you to play in a certain way," and Ten Hag's either been forced to do this or he has realized like Arsenal, like Man City, Manchester United need to control games for 90 minutes, and yet they haven't done that under Ten Hag often. I can see the team going towards that. It's just they don't do it for 90 minutes.
Yep.
Whether that is, still having periods of silliness against Southampton for the first 30 minutes where it was just where they got run ragged on animated save and then they controlled the game. And then Palace was the reverse where they controlled the game for the first 60 and then it got
Yep.
ragged for the last 30 because I think he changed the dynamic too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, we had 20 last night where it was, to a degree, I think the first 20, 30 minutes, they still control the game. And
Yep.
when I see a Europa League group stage game on a Thursday, I want to look at it and go, don't give me anything. Don't give anybody else anything to shout about. It's keep it quiet, all right? It's a Thursday night. Everybody wants to get in and get out. That's all you need to do.
Yes.
And when a result like that, like last night happens,
Again.
and it's not
Yeah.
quiet, you've woken up everybody up, and you're causing more alarm bells to happen. You're causing crap for
Mm-hmm.
yourself that you don't need to. It's 20. Get in, get out, get the job done, and move. But it's another example of the fact that this team is going towards trying to control games for 90 minutes. It can't right now. It can't finish its dinner. Um, and I get what we're trying to do. I'm not sure anybody has much patience or patience has been less than it was 2 years ago or a year ago for what is being trying to be done for various different reasons. I think we saw it again yesterday, and I think we saw it again against Palace. Before the season started, I thought, God, we've got a great bench. We've got great substitutes. Mount can come on, Xerxes can come off. You can bring on an attacker. You can bring, three different attackers on if you want.
Yeah, I mean, we had
think
Manu, Mount all off the bench yesterday.
Mount
That's
off the
a
bench.
lot of good players. Yeah.
But for some reason, whenever they make changes, it seems to upset the dynamic more than anything.
We get worse, yeah.
Xerxes went off against Palace, and we never looked like scoring again. And that shouldn't happen when you've got good talent to bring off the bench. So it feels like he's figuring things out, and it feels like we know where we want to get to. There's quite a lot to there's quite a lot of in terms of how do we navigate the roadmap to get there, because there's going to be bumps in the road.
For sure. And then, of course, the question becomes, is it still enough, right? Is where we want to get to still good enough, right? Because there's obviously different ways. I mean, we played different football. I bring up Ole Gunnar Solskjaer just because there's all these quotes today from him being asked if he come back as manager, things like that, and some people pining for it. Not myself personally. I love Ole, not the answer. And I bring it up because it's an interesting thing here, right? We won a lot of games under Solskjaer. We had good league form under Solskjaer. We went an entire season without losing away under Solskjaer. But the ceiling of that football was limited under Solskjaer. We still struggled against low blocks and things like that when we played under Solskjaer. We were very reliant on those transitions more than anybody else still. And when I go back to the Liverpool aspect of it, I look at what was so smart about how they went about things to be so successful as they were under Klopp. And people can hate it all they want, but they have been quite successful. The most successful team outside of outside of Man City during this sort of, this sort of Man City era, unfortunately, the Pep Guardiola era, which, other teams dealt with during the Sir Alex Ferguson era, right? Of running into the brick wall of a team that was just so good that you hard to be remembered that way. They were good, but not just at one thing, right? Yeah. They were able to transition quickly and attack quickly, but also slow the game down. Slaw's talked about this, and it is painful when you look at it. Yesterday, for example, Liverpool played entirely rotated 11. I mean, an entirely rotated 11 and won 5-1 against West Ham. And we're drawing 1-1 against FC20 with close to our best team. It wasn't even that rotated, It was nearly our best team. And you look at it and say, okay, even in year one, it shouldn't be that bad. It shouldn't be this hard. And that's the downside of it. And there's things that are good and there's things that are not. And one of the things is that I think we get to this next, because maybe we can talk about some of the things that have improved, because there are improvements.
Absolutely.
But the problem I think we've had under Ten Hag his entire time is we don't score goals. And when we did score goals, it was almost purely on the basis of Rashford going through, at the time, what was near nuclear level form, right? Yeah. Goals. And it was only about a 3-month stretch, because after the League Cup, we went to shit. And we actually have never played well consistently since the League Cup final in that season. We have never had a good stretch of games in that time. And Rashford's goal scoring fell off at that time too, right? But, we beat Barcelona in that tie with some really good play overall. Again, we had a really nice goal from Rashford in that, I think, as well, from a really tight angle. But we had a good game. It was a good game plan. We won the League Cup in a scrappy game, which is fine. And then we lost 7-0 to Liverpool, and we have not turned since that point in time.
I think my friend told me at the time, and he was like, well, we burst your bubble. I was like, oh, yeah, right, we'll be back. And then
we haven't come back.
I think we did burst our bubble.
But we haven't scored goals, right? Like, we just don't score goals.
No, I think it's a big problem. It's not. How many we scored this season?
5.
We scored three against Southampton, 1 against Brighton, 1 against Fulham.
5 goals.
5 goals.
That's
Yeah.
it. 5
This
goals.
team,
And you know that it's like the thing about it, right, is that is a problem, because I think that problem is sort of like, at the end of the day, it's still how you scoring goals is, you can't get anywhere without scoring goals, no matter
no,
what you fix elsewhere. And I think a lot of our problems really do stem from that. And it's easy to look at it and say it's just a personnel thing, like just finishing chances. But all chances are not equal either, right? And
no.
how you make chances, where you make chances, the consistency that you make chances are all factors into this. But let's come back to that a little bit, because I think that's a bigger part of it. We have made changes
Absolutely.
especially in the back line and the build up in possession, which has helped us out of possession. I think
It's
especially
been,
against
I think it's been,
Southampton,
for me,
yeah,
it's been the
second
biggest
half.
improvement by far this year.
Yeah.
Is the build up and
So
in
what did
possession.
we change there?
So, and I want to preface this as well. Against Palace for that first 60 minutes, and I tweeted this at the time, that was one of the best performances under Ten Hag, bar none. Bar none. It was one of the best. For 60 minutes at
Mhm.
least, or 70 minutes. Again, this is the problem under Ten Hag. Can't do it for 90 minutes. The
Right.
second half performances this year have fallen off a cliff. Good, excellent against Brighton in the first half, bad against Brighton in the second. Relied on subs and just a little bit of chaos against Fulham in the second half. But the build-up has definitely changed, and the in-possession work, I'm genuinely applauding. Some of the football is genuinely brilliant. Like I don't want this to be lost whilst we have our little session of what's wrong with this club, because the football that I'm seeing United play at times is genuinely gorgeous. It's genuinely gorgeous. Against Palace, it was. So the build-up at the back now is a 3 and a 2 in the middle, but the 2 in the middle is pretty much his Dallo now. Dallo is like an inverted
Mhm.
fullback, advanced, and then you have 2 advanced states on the outside of your 3-2. So there's 3
Yeah.
at the back, 2 in the
Yep.
middle, and 2 advanced states, maybe Ericsson and Fernandes. Mino and Dallo in the middle. Your 3 at the back is your De Ligt, Mazraoui, and Martinez. Now, normally what teams do, and teams do this in football throughout, it's a big tactical war that's going on now, is they sit on the central midfielders. So they'll sit on Mainu and Dallo. So you saw Adam Wharton and Kamada for Palace sitting on Mainu and Dallo. Now, Palace's front 3, Eze, Mateta, and I forget who the other one was.
You mean the first half?
Yeah, Eze,
They made
Mateta.
subs at halftime that changed it quite a bit. But yeah, who did they start with? It was Nketiah.
That's it. Okay, Eze,
Yep.
Mateta, and Nketiah. Whenever they pressed one of the 3 at the back, United found spaces by passing it to the advanced 8, either Ericsson or Bruno Fernandes, on the edges of Palace's press. It was brilliant. It was really good. When I was rewatching it back, I was like, they're waiting for Palace to press, and then they're passing through them. So they turned, progressed the ball, got it to the attackers. And I think we should preface this by saying the build-up against Palace was brilliant. They created so many chances against Palace. I think was a double post within the space of a minute. I think Bruno missed an open net. We should have definitely scored at least 3 or 4 against Palace in that first half. 100%. That's the build-up is brilliant now, because it's. I always thought that under Ten Hag, United had a big problem when teams pressed them. I was watching a clip of, like, I think Leeds came and Somerville just. It was a 3-on-3, so they pressed the 3 at the back and they didn't know what to do. The addition of Mazraoui, the addition of Xerxes, the addition of Dalot as an advanced midfielder now make teams, when they press United, it's now United are using it against teams, so they're playing through them whilst being pressed. It's a big plus point. It's just the chances against Palace, they weren't scored, and then after 60 minutes, this team does this. It reverts to hoofball. It reverts to, it's like my transition senses are tingling, and Bruno gets it and hoofball in behind to Rashford. Because it worked for them so much in Ten Hag's first season, that's what they resorted to. They should have absolutely scored more chances against Palace, but the changes plus, let's go back to hoofball, and because we haven't scored a goal, plus the amount of changes that were made, the dynamic was completely different when Xerxes went off. All of that kind of goes back into Palace creating chances, Palace getting space, and it's because they still can't control a game for 90 minutes. They still can't. They're learning how to do that, and I think they've only been instructed to do that now. They're only this is a move to control games through in possession. And the thing is, when you control games in possession for large periods, you'll have to defend less, right? Look at City. They don't.
Yep.
They don't do
Yeah,
that many
you defend. Yeah, you defend with possession. Yeah.
Guardiola said it in an interview. When you have the ball, you keep it in the fridge, and the ball is there. It's ours. We control the game.
Mm-hmm.
City defend as well. They don't. City's idea of pragmatism though is take this thing out of the game. And to the other team they'll say, you shut up now. You be quiet. I don't care about your cute little transitions. We're gonna have the ball for 60, 70 minutes. This team is trying to learn how to do that. It's just there's roadblocks in the way. The build-up I'm really liking. The build-up is really good, and I'm liking it. It's just they can't do it for 90 minutes, and they can't finish their dinner either. It's partly luck, I think, as well. Parts of it, like Garnacho should have had 3 or 4 goals by now. The Brighton open net was obviously it was bad luck, but I can't keep watching these games going. I really like those first 60 minutes. I don't like the last 90, the last 30.
Yeah, and for sure. And I guess part of the thing that is concerning, like what concerned me about Palace and set off alarm bells, because I would have had, I was pretty negative after the game, not because of the game as a whole, but what set off alarm bells to me was the subs in particular in that game. Because when I watched it, I said, I can see what's working. It's obvious. Everybody can see what's working, right? With the midfield, with the setup, with Xerxes. Xerxes was vital to the game. The minute he comes off, it's over. They do nothing from that point on. And I look at that and I say, if there were 3 players in that game that I wouldn't have subbed, it would have been Xerxes, Eriksen, and Ahmad, because they were giving us possession and they were giving us control. And those were the 3 players that came off. And it had almost disastrous consequences. I mean, we gave up more chances to Palace than we had in the second half. They should have scored as well, right? Onana had to make a really good save. I think even in the first half, there was one chance that Eze probably scores on most days that he just kind of shot straight at Onana.
Yeah.
But that's okay. We made a lot more chances than them in the first half. But when the subs happened, I looked at that and I said, I don't want to discredit everything that a manager does. But when certain things keep repeating, I start to wonder, I start to wonder sometimes. I understand there are things that are instructional, right? But I also start to wonder if he gets if it's like, sometimes it feels as though the team planning and the subs are pre-planned and have very little to do with what's actually happening on the pitch. And it's like, do we get lucky or not, basically, as to whether the dynamics work out sometimes, right? And I think one of Ten Hag's flaws in general, going back to kind of goal scoring, is I think when it comes to the goals themselves, there's a big reliance on an individual to do something. And when he makes subs, it's often in that case. It's very straightforward. He needed a goal against Palace, so he put Rashford on in the middle because he scored twice against Barnsley. And I think the logic is that basic. And I think I was like, wait, no. Hold on a second. It's too basic. It's like it's
going to do one
basic.
thing. I've said this throughout with Ten Hag.
Yeah.
The only season we had where he kept chopping and changing was the first season. But in the last 2 seasons, I feel like he just makes too many changes. And he feels like if you're going to do one thing, just stick with it.
Yeah.
But also, I've wondered this. Genuinely, I've wondered this. In the last, for this relentless schedule that we have. We played twice in 4 days now, and you're playing a player who I get why he has to play, and he gives us a sense of control in Christian Eriksen.
Yeah.
He looks gassed. He looked
Yes.
gassed in the first season. He looked gassed whenever he came on last season. He still can't play 90 minutes. My concern with this is he gives us a lot, and if you want to control the ball and you want to go to this possession-based thing, great, absolutely brilliant, have him in. But when you realize that he still gets gassed after 70 minutes, again,
60, yeah.
we conceded the goal yesterday. Look, that can happen. The lackadaisicalness can happen. When he isn't playing, what's the plan? Is it Ugarte and Mainu to control the ball in the middle of the pitch? Ugarte, Mainu, and then Bruno? Because I don't think Manu Ugarte was sound for that, by the way.
Yeah, and it's like, look, it's a challenge because again, it's like here's where what doesn't make sense to me. This is where I sort of look at it and I'm like, it's really hard. Eriksen was essentially out of the plans, and now he's the essentially been the catalyst for our good play the last few games. That's why he starts 4 games, and look, people make even his mistake giving the goal away. That's tiredness. It's exhaustion. It happens. Players make more mistakes the more tired they are, the more exhausted they are, mentally, physically, all of it. Even the mistake he makes giving that ball away when it's at 70 minutes into a game, it's tiredness. It is, whether one wants to accept that or not. Players don't make mistakes like that except when they're exhausted and they're tired. Not good players like him. It's very rare. And when you've played 4 games in like 12 days, which I think he has, he doesn't have the energy for that. He does not have the energy for that anymore. And that he used to, but not at this point in time. It's been probably 7 years since Christian Eriksen has had that level of fitness. And but the thing is he was out of the plans. Now he's the plan, and it feels like you still don't know how to put this all together. But there's a few challenges here, right? Because I agree with what you're saying. Like, look, there's 2 ways to go about this, and there's a big elephant in a room on this whole point. If Christian Eriksen is your starter to get you control, you can't. You have a Bruno Fernandes problem now in this too, because his influence this season is very little. He's not been great performance-wise, but he's also not been very influential. And Bruno's, I think, strength comes from his ability to do big things at times, right? Big things that you wouldn't expect others to be able to do. He doesn't do the basics particularly well. There's a lot of basics that, you wouldn't, and I say that relative, right? Like, there's a lot of basics where you say, Bruno, just keep it simple, and it's hard for him to do it. When you want him to keep it simple, he just really doesn't. But if he's not doing the big things, he's not that good at the little things. He's not a special player when it comes to the little things, right? He's not a good carrier of the ball. He's not somebody who's going to dribble out of pressure and things like that at all. He doesn't do a lot of the big, it's a challenge. And so when you look at that control, you could say, well, we could start Eriksen at the 10 and invert Dalot next to Ugarte and put Mainu and Eriksen up front as those 2 attacking 8s. That might work, but you have to be willing to let go of Bruno Fernandes to do that. At least
this team is built around him, so you're not going to do that.
But he won't do it because you still can't. We're still not scoring goals, and so he's not going to drop a player who can score a goal out of nothing. That's why Bruno stays on for 90 every game, because he's the only player that Ten Hag feels will just make something out of nothing. But the question is that actually a sustainable way? Pep doesn't play that way. I don't think that Sir Alex ever managed that way either.
No,
I think he would replace anyone at any time.
If anybody ticked him off, he was out, gone. I don't care. I'll play John O'Shea central mid.
Right, exactly. And he says just go out there, do a job, and get it done. Right, and it's like,
and then a player learned from that whenever they got taken off.
Correct. Correct. I think it's like Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was gonna say it's like this very complex issue with Ten Hag where I do feel that he's still so reliant on someone doing something, and he still weights his decisions too much in that favor, where he won't replace the magic players no matter what happens. Like he needs them. He feels he needs them instead of just continuing a process. You know what I mean? Like just keep doing this. We don't need the magic. You know what I mean? I don't know how to get around that because I'm not one of these people who wants to see all the individual brilliance taken out of football, right? I'm not one of these people who wants to see everybody turn into automatons and robots and everything, right? It's not like that for me. But I think that I look at it and I say, you, at some point, you can't keep saying, I need a moment of magic out of a player to win. You've got to, that's a bonus rather than your plan A. You know what I mean? Like that cannot be the main plan. And that's one of the areas I think we struggle pretty heavily in.
Yeah. The discourse around Bruno, maybe he's tired. Um, we've had this plenty of times where he'll have a couple of bad games, and normally when that happens, there's a good game around the corner.
Yeah.
So I'm not really that concerned about him in this sense. What I will say is, I think of the City final, and I think of City away last season. Um, and where like he had to control the ball more and he had to play it a little bit slower and he didn't play it fast in those
Yep.
games. So you're like, wait, you can do it then, but
Yes.
you're still in this mode of like, I still got to play it direct and we can still go in behind. And I think
But is
obviously,
it
and
him
honestly,
or is it Ten Hag? You know, because it's the
yes,
same thing.
I think
Like I
honestly,
don't, I
honestly against Palace it was him. Honestly against
right.
Palace, I
I thought so
rewatched the
too.
game.
To be fair, yes.
Almost every action where like a simple
Yeah.
pass down the wing or like a 1-2 with Minu, it was like a little bit overhit. And look, it can
Yeah.
happen. It can happen.
Yeah.
I find it hard to get on Bruno's back because I don't know how many appearances he's had for Man United. Almost 75% of them are probably games that we've won. If of the games that we've won of his appearance, at least 75%, 80% of them, he's heavily contributed. So I'm not going to get
Mhm.
on his back if someone's
Yeah.
tired and he's had two bad games. Again,
Yeah.
normally with Bruno, there's a good game around the corner when he goes through a little bit of a bad patch.
Yeah.
Um, we would have probably won the game if he did one solid action in
Right.
against Palace. But like
Yes.
literally one, but he
Yes.
didn't. So we are where we are.
Yeah.
But it just we keep going back to it, but it feels like it's just a little bit of it's a difficult start because you've got this new change of build up that seems to be working, but the results and the output aren't completely there yet, and there's still caveats and problems that we're running into. Um, when either it's either not sustaining it for 90 minutes or it either happens when the changes happen. So Ericsson, by the way, has started against Southampton. He started
Mm,
against Twente. He started against Palace.
mhm.
So I just worry that the best part of this is the build up. And if Ericsson is huge in this and you've realized that he's gassed, what's the plan B then? Is Ugarte going to come on because he's not the player who can dictate the tempo? Maybe you can
Yep.
drop Minu a little bit deeper, um, bring in another fullback or Mason Mount, Money Mace. Money Mace would be a
Mhm.
good. Money Mace would definitely be a good option for that. Um, I think looking forward on Sunday now, because of that result against 20, you've got to win against Tottenham. You just have to.
Yeah.
When
At home.
Tottenham
Yeah.
had a bad start, people are questioning Ange now. Um, I'm going to anticipate us pressing. I think they're going to press. It's Old Trafford at home. He likes to press, so I would say let's translate some of the good points into momentum, into wins. Because in that first season under Ten Hag, when I think we had a lot of discourse about this, we had a lot of conversation about this,
Yep.
was okay, why are the problems that were still there in the first season? Why are they magically going away now? And why are we not talking about them as much? And why does nobody care that we're just winning by 1 goal? And why does nobody care that he's bringing on a defender with 20 minutes left and he's just holding a lead? And the answer was, well, because we're winning, right? Ten Hag, it feels like his style is predominantly, I got to win, I got to win, I got to win. That's why they've won so many games by 1 goal. So he needs a win on Sunday, and he needs to build momentum.
Yes. Yeah, agreed with that. And yeah, it's hard to solve this. It's hard, it really is. It's hard to solve this. It's kind of hard to solve this problem, in general, as to what the right answer is to fixing all of these things, I guess,
Yeah.
and getting it right, because there's so many things that there's so many things that it's you'd like to see the stability moving forward, but balanced with, you can't be losing that many games, I guess. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Mm.
While progressing this way, because it shouldn't be this hard, to win games against lower opposition, especially. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this difficult. And it's surprising that it is. What do they do moving forward? Because this issue with the goals, like, we'll have games where we make chances, but we have games that we don't. And when you
Mm.
look at issues like, one of the things, like, you have Dallo, who tucking in, like you said, that has helped in controlling and doing the buildup. But at the same time, then I watch other teams play against us, and their fullbacks overlap with the wingers, and they're making attacks, and you know, their fullbacks overlap with the wingers, and they're making attacks, and and we just don't. And it's like, and it seems like we're moving away from that even more than before. So do we have enough? I mean, it's like it it feels like we're not doing a lot of basic things still, and I'm not sure when we're going to, is, I guess, part of the question. Like, when are we, if we are ever going to actually do the basics? If Dallo is now tucking in all the time, and that's a solution to build up, and Mazraoui's in the back three, well, then we're never really going to have overlapping fullbacks. Rashford's always going to be a touchline winger. And that presents challenges, right, for goal scoring and consistent chance creation. So what's the answer? I mean, how do you fix that?
You've got to stick to the plan. You've got to stick to first 60 minutes against Palace. After post the Onana save against Southampton, you've got to stick to it, and you've got to hone it in a way where we can do this for 90 minutes. And when we do this for 90 minutes, we're going to control the ball and we're going to create chances. It can happen. It's football. Sometimes Garnacho has an open net, and it bizarrely becomes a situation where another striker, where it hits a knee of our other striker and becomes offside. It just against Palace as well. It's just now sinking in how big of a result that was, because if this style is not ready to beat the big teams yet, and against the big teams, I'm anticipating, I think that he will go for transitions. Like I think we saw against Liverpool. I think he was trying to create the game into more of a crazy, chaotic back to that game. And if you're going to do this against the low bottom half teams, you got to win those games. You got to by hook or by crook. You got to win those games. They didn't, and now he plays Tottenham, Porto away, Villa away, I think Brentford, and then Fenerbahce away. And this is going into, I think, the next international break. So this is all by the 27th of October now. So there's questions. There's questions around him that are as long as he's the coach, there's going to be questions continue around him to swirl, just because of how dire this team was last season.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see we're gonna see a lot. There's already a huge, big, crucial period now for United in this season.
Yes.
So I think against Tottenham they're gonna press. And by the way, we didn't see the pressing against Southampton. We didn't see. We
Yeah. I'm
saw.
still not sure what. Yeah.
I will admit the pressing against Palace was better. That's why they sustained pressure for 60 minutes. I
Yeah.
kept looking at Lissandro Martinez and Mino. Soon as they lost the ball, the counter press was on. It's like, we've lost the ball, get it back straight away, get control back. You've got to
Yeah.
do that, and you've got to stick to it. But I think he will go for a higher aggressive press against Tottenham. It feels like we know what he's going to do, and it feels like we know we're going to still run into issues and problems. So they need to get into a place where they can dominate games for larger periods and score, and make their minds up about their pressing, and get wins on the board at the same time. And it's going to be more difficult to do because you're going to go away in Europe. You're playing a game every 3 days. If you're going to play Ericsson, he's going to be exhausted. So it's a big pressure period for him already.
Agreed. And basically where things are at with Ten Hag is that there's things that have progressed, but I put this in a video or pre-match yesterday, just from talking to people that I speak with to understand. And their biggest thing to want to see is, can Ten Hag solve some of the problems that are still showing up? Because there's pitfalls, right, in these things that have to be resolved and will really determine how well we do against these games. And I think that in watching it, for me, these are kind of my questions. Okay. And I don't know the answer, but these are my questions, right? Number one, as I said, if you're inverting Dalot into the midfield, are you going to have enough people in attack? Because one of the positives against Palace that can be a negative in other games is that we can control the game essentially by having 5 midfielders because Xerxes dropping in. But then you lack a little bit of final third activity, right? Runs into the box, men in the box. You're not really getting that many players into the box at any given time, right? So fewer scrappy goals, fewer cutbacks, fewer of sort of the easy goals you'd hope to get in there for consistent creation game to game, right? That would be question number one. From my perspective, do you go to the original plan, which was have Kobbie Mainoo and Ugarte deep, with Bruno in front of them, and then get your fullbacks further forward into the attack? That's a possibility, right? That's another route to go, but can you do that and still maintain good build-up and playing through the press and things like that? The other factor I thought defensively that did show up a little bit, even against FC20, Palace tried to exploit this a little, but they were kind of bad at it. I thought this was sort of their plan, is with Dalot tucking in, Lissandro Martinez is essentially your wide channel defender on the left, and he's not very good at it. He's had a pretty poor start to the season. He was pretty poor against FC20, especially in the second half. Again, even the goal that happened, he's out of position. He's kind of running into space, not defending well in that transitionary moment, and is totally out of whack. And I think against teams like overly aggressive, yes. And I look at games like Tottenham, and I think they're going to exploit the hell out of that problem because they have runners there, fast runners, people who play in space there. They love to swarm the box, do Tottenham, right? And so if Lissandro is your channel running defender, I think he's going to struggle. He's not a left back. He is definitely not someone who defends well into spaces. Liverpool have exploited that against us when they've been able to. And we've done well against them when we've gotten a fullback to stick to their right winger. That's an issue if our fullback is tucked into the midfield. These are kind of the pitfalls that open up with even some of the positive changes that I see that I'm sort of worried about solving. And I think these are the things I don't have the answers, but that I try to figure out, how does Ten Hag solve this? How do we get enough forwards if our fullback is tucking in? but also will Lissandro get exposed against more aggressive, physical, and fast forwards on that side in this instance? And those are my concerns that I see with this approach, because it's like there's positives with it, but if the negatives that come, or if some of the pitfalls, because there's always a plus and a minus with every move, like there's always a pluses and minuses. You put more men in defense, but you have fewer in attack. You put more in attack, but you're more open defensively, and it's finding a balance. Where's the balance to get it consistently right moving forward? And I also think somehow we have to find that balance without having to rely on Christian Eriksen to create and control every game, because we can't do that. It's not going to work moving forward. Him and Bruno cannot start every game together. It's not going to work against good teams. It's too risky, I think, in the way I see it, just because of, there's not enough ground coverage. There's not enough pressing. There's not enough movement there, off the ball, especially to keep it going.
I should have said this earlier. I hope people haven't dialed out now. We'll see the whole, that little
yeah.
heart defibrillator little count that goes out.
Yeah.
Palace gave us space because when their attack was drawn out, and Brighton gave us space because when their attack was drawn out, that's when we found space. Against 20 in the second half, it was flat because they went back into the mid-block or low block.
Correct. Yes.
And then we had no space on the advanced aids. So now we're running into these other problems.
Correct. Yes.
Whilst having solutions to do. When teams aren't dumb, right? Premier League teams have armies of analysts. They're going to figure out what you're doing by game week, whatever the hell, but when they've got enough data, and then they're going to go do this against them. And when that tends to happen, Ten Hag doesn't tend to have a plan B. It's normally a plan A. I've got a good plan A. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But he doesn't really react well to what other managers do.
Correct.
Which I still can't get my head around why that has stopped, because in the first season, that was what he was brilliant at. That was literally, he was like, oh, they're doing this. Why don't we change this? Why don't we move Fred to up into the 10? Why don't we put Weghorst in midfield? So we need to also find, that's also another concern. I don't want to stack the concerns upon concerns.
No, but look, we're not great, right? So there are concerns, but it's exactly that thing, like you said. It's like, it's not a
start that fills me with. It's a start that fills me with, okay, we're nicer to watch, but we're still running into problems. And it feels like, somebody said it to me the other day, it feels like it's his first year. It feels like he's had this new move to a possession-based style, and it's his first year again. Because the first year it was like he was sacrificing everything to win. We were brilliant because we hit teams on the counter if we were playing in big matches, and we were stifling them in the middle. And against lower half teams, it was we can break down a low block because we've got the whole inverted fullback or a wide winger, and that's how we're going to make use of the half spaces. It went to tip last year because every single different thing, I think personally, every single different thing he tried was a response to the injuries last season.
Right.
That was what was happening. And each one of them sucked. Each one of them was bad, right? Whichever way you look at it, whether it was no principles and hoofball, whether it was chaos ball and play for transitions, each one of them sucked. So now it feels like we've had quite a different range of football, I feel, under Ten Hag. But now it feels like he is trying this style, and we're going to continue with this style and stick to the plan. But we're running into roadblocks with this one as well.
Yep. And that's the question, is how do we solve it? Because like you said, that's why was sort of my point. You take the Dalot thing, good for tucking in, good for certain aspects of the game. But when teams stop giving us space, do we have enough attackers to get forward? Do we have enough penetration to actually get goals? I don't know. And teams will adjust and start and keep taking space away. I mean, against Solskjaer, teams learn to do it, right? Like you said, that's why I brought up Solskjaer in the beginning. They learned, well, just don't even press them. Just sit deep. They can't do anything if you just sit deep. They cannot do it because they're so reliant on these transitions. And my concern is that for different reasons, we're facing a similar problem. 20 in that second half, after they scored, they sat off, and it looks like we had all this control and possession later, did nothing. We couldn't do anything with it.
I think
And
Bruno had like one shot, and that was it.
yeah,
What I would
and we,
also say is with under Solskjaer as well, if they didn't break down a low block, they'd draw, or like Pogba would score a volley from 40 yards.
yeah, you need a big moment. Yeah.
He was like, people were saying he over relies on players, or like he's relying on key moments. Look at what Ancelotti does, right?
Yes.
So Solskjaer was an underrated manager, and at least if he didn't break down a low block, normally we didn't concede that many chances on the other end of the
Correct.
pitch.
Yes, we were pretty
Not
good
like we did
defensively
against
most of the
Southampton
time.
and
Yeah.
Palace.
Yeah. Yeah. But agreed. And that adjustment from we've seen that before. The other managers do tend to adjust. I mean, I will say, even against Palace, Glasner adjusted right at halftime and took off two men, made a couple changes, and they got better. He spotted something and he said, "Oh, I'm going to make these changes early." And even before the subs, it was starting to trend down. I think our control, our creativity, and he found those adjustments, and our adjustments didn't push it back in our favor, right? Instead, it seemed to we seem to see more and more control, and that is the issue, is that I think there's improvements, but like you say, there's roadblocks even with the improvements. And are we going to have to compromise again on some of the problems we fixed in order to fix the new problems that are showing up? And how long do you keep doing that until you find a balance that works? And that, I don't know. That's what I do not know. That's what we don't have the answers to. And I think at the end of the day, when it comes to managers, that's really all that it is. They try to find the right way to do things, and they have essentially an amount of time to figure this out, what the right balance is for fixing these problems and getting it right. And if they get it right, then things start to take off, and you start to get results, and you start to earn them. And if you don't, then you get these inconsistencies week in and week out. And the question is, how much time do you get? That's really what at the end of the day. Can you fix it, first of all, but also how much time do you get to find that balance? And that we don't have the answers to yet. But I think that, again, if it was Ten Hag's first year, it'd be a little different. If it was not, part of I think here's the other thing that makes people impatient, myself included on this, because I think it's a fair criticism. He's got so many players he knows. It shouldn't take this long to figure it out.
It's true.
His back line has 4 players he coached at Ajax. It shouldn't take this long to figure out the answers to this team. That's one of the big pluses of getting players you're familiar with, is you shorten the runway, right? He's got them, and it's still not working yet. It's still taking too long to sort it out. That is a fair critique, because, again, like, if you want to make an argument in favor of signing players that you've worked with before, that's the argument. And it's not like they've been bad. De Ligt has been great. Mazraoui's been great as individuals, but the team is not right still. It's still not producing. So, how much time to figure this out? I don't know.
I think it's ended up being it's this week, or this space of, was it Thursday, right? This last 5 days should have been a Palace 20, get in and get
Easy
out
wins.
job.
Yeah.
You scored 10 goals in 2 games against Barnsley and Southampton. Build some momentum. It's early in the season, right off the coattails, and go into Tottenham. And now he's created this entirely big problem because they couldn't get the job done twice. And this team doesn't know how to finish its dinner.
Yep. So I guess we'll find out if we can solve these problems against Tottenham. We'll find out something. They're different games, My biggest fear is that we still end up wondering after 3 games. Like, we'll win one of them and it'll look good, and then the next game it'll fall flat again, and I'll sit there and go,
more questions.
Was it luck? What's the I don't have an answer. Were we just lucky, or is it actually good, or is it not? But I think part of the thing is that is an answer in itself. The longer it goes where we still don't know is in itself an answer. And so we do need answers soon. We cannot continue to just be asking questions. We do need answers. And because that middle ground is an answer in itself. If you can't answer the questions, that is also an answer as to whether it's working or not. So we'll see. We'll see. We've got more to come. Like you said, there's good things, but we want to see now, can we fix the other problems and get the balance right? And but I do think the clock is ticking on this, and it's ticking on our season too. Because if we want top 4, if we want Champions League, you can't draw in Europa against FC20, and you can't draw against Crystal Palace because these games against Tottenham and Villa, these are top 4 competition for the 4th position, really, as I look at it. We should have been riding a momentum into this to get 4 points out of these 2 games. I think would have been good. I struggle to see how we're going to pull that off now.
Yeah. It's a difficult one because it's the next October is huge now. Yep. October is huge for Ten Hag.
Yep. And for the team in general, it is as well. Okay, I think that's good. I think we've about covered everything, so we'll probably leave it there. Hopefully more answers soon. And then we can look the next time after Tottenham and say, hey, this is what, well, we'll try to do it after Tottenham and maybe after Porto. We'll see. I don't remember what day it is, but we'll do the next one and we'll look at it and say, okay, we know what we're doing now, or one way or another, good or bad. Hopefully at the end of it, we have something to take away from it. Yeah, because confusion has been my default state of mind with United for some time now, and that gets pretty tiring as well.
Yeah. We want some answers, basically.
Exactly.
Even if you don't like those answers, I want some answers.
Some answers, some finality on certain things. All right. So appreciate that. Thanks again, Dharnish. Make sure to follow him on Twitter, Dharnish Iqbal. I'll link him when we make the post, when I publish the video as well. Good threads, good tweets and posts and things that make it all very, very simple. A lot of good breakdowns on our play, including one on Palace. So yes, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn your notifications on. And thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.